In this video on coordinate geometry of the line, I'm going to be looking at graphing lines with a particular focus on horizontal and vertical lines. So horizontal and vertical lines are the easiest kinds of lines to graph, and even their equations look very simple. Horizontal lines are written in the form y is equal to c, so y is equal to a number. For example, y is equal to 3 or y is equal to -1. So these are typical horizontal line equations, y is equal to and then a number at the end. Vertical lines are written in the form x equals to a, where again a is just a number. So for example, you might have x equals to 2, or another example, x equals to -3. And horizontal and vertical lines really tell you what they're all about in the equation. For example, with y is equal to -1, it's telling you go straight through the y-axis at the value -1 in this case. And it's the same idea with vertical lines. So in this case, you go through the x-axis at this number, which in this case is -3. So let's see then what these lines look like when we graph them. So for our first example, we're going to graph y is equal to 3. So I'll start off by drawing an xy plane. Take a moment to do this yourself, and don't forget to mark in the dashes and numbers on each of the axes. And of course, the one thing that I have to make sure of when drawing that xy plane is that I go up at least as far as 3 on the y-axis. So to draw my line, I'll go to the y-axis, I'll go to 3, and I'll draw a line right through that. And there's my line y equals to 3. It couldn't be any simpler. So now a question for you. I want you to graph y is equal to -1. So pause the video here while you do that, and then play and make sure that you were correct. So again, I've drawn my xy plane. I've got this really simple looking equation, which tells me to go to the y-axis and go through -1. And when I do that, my line should look just like this. Notice that in both of these cases, the line that I've drawn is parallel to the x-axis. So now let's turn our attention to vertical lines. So first of all, we'll do an example. So we'll start by graphing x equals to 2. If you feel confident about this, pause the video now and try and do it yourself, and then play and see if you're correct. So I've drawn my xy plane, and then I look at my equation and see that it says x equals to 2. So again, it's really spelling it out for me here. I'm going to go to the x-axis, I'm going to go to 2 on the x-axis, and I'm going to draw a line right through it. And this is how my line should turn out. A vertical line down through 2 on the x-axis. Okay, now a question for you. I want you to graph x equals -3. So pause the video here while you do that, and then play to see if you're correct. So I've started by drawing my xy plane, and then I'll note the information in the equation. So again, that really simple looking equation, x equals to a number. So I'll go to the x-axis, I'll go to -3, and I'll draw a line straight down through it. And there's how my line should look in this case. So we noted that lines that were in the form y equals c, horizontal lines, were parallel to the x-axis. What can I note about lines that are written in the form x equals a, the vertical lines? At this point, let's take a moment to go back and look at all of these graphs and just notice an interesting feature in each case. Let's start with the graph y is equal to 3. And let's just note some points that are on this line. So I've just marked this point here. It's the point 3, 3, and it's on the line. Okay, that's fine. Now I've marked a second point, and this point this time is the point 2, 3. Moving further over, we have this point here, which is the point 1, 3. And as I move further along the line and mark several other points, I notice that in every single case, the y part of the point is 3. So not only is this simple equation y equals 3 telling me where to position my line visually, but it's also telling me something about how the points on that line are made up. In this case, every point is going to have its y value as 3. Take a moment to have a look at the other graphs and see what's happening in those. Pause the video here while you do that, and then play to see if you've spotted the right thing. Okay, so looking at my line y equals -1, I've got the point 3 -1, along with 2 -1, 1 -1, 0 -1, -1 -1, -2 -1, and so on if I was to keep going. So again, this simple equation is telling me something about the pattern that I can expect to see in the points that are on that line. I'm going to look next at x equals 2, and I've marked in several points along this line. If you haven't done so yet, write down those points now and see, can you see a common pattern through them? So when we list all those points out, you can see that the x value in each case is the same. All of these points have 2 first, and then of course their y value changes as we move along the line. So again, in this case, not only is the equation of my line a nice simple instruction for how to graph it by going through the x-axis at 2, but it also tells me about how the points on that line are going to look. And then finally, let's do it for x equals minus 3. So again, I've got a whole selection of points along this line, but they all have this minus 3 at the start in common. Their x values are all minus 3. So it's just interesting to note the connections there between how the equations look, where the lines are positioned, and the points that occur on those lines.